The stars of animation are shining. It's time to stay tuned. And now, here's your host, Phil Machi.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Stay Tuned Live, an all-new live stream talk show presented by Streaming the Magic right here on Facebook. My name is Phil Machi, and I'm an animator, cartoonist, and former Disney cast member, and it is my pleasure to be your host each and every week as we deep dive into the world of animated film. Before the show starts, once again, I'd like to let everyone know about a little place right here on Facebook where you can connect with other fans of this show and tap into the latest news from the animation world. It's the Stay Tuned community page, and you can be a part of it right now. All you got to do is go to facebook.com/groups/Stay Tuners. Okay, well, there are many potential paths in life. For anybody, really, but also for the life of an artist in particular. And some of those paths are inspired to become animators and some writers, and as we've seen recently on the show, even visual effects artists. But sometimes the characters and stories that fill our hearts and our minds with joy and imagination take on a different form. And my guest tonight studied under Disney animator Milt Neal, and is now an officially licensed Disney fine artist specializing in oil paintings. So please welcome Clinton Hobart.
Hello.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Are you receiving me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you quite well. Thank you. Welcome, Clinton, to Stay Tuned Live. I'm very happy to have you, especially because I feel like we it's been building up to this a little bit because I met you a couple years ago at a convention, and so now here we are. We get to do this thing.
Yes, because we can't do a convention.
Exactly, we can't do a convention, so we're gonna make do with what we've got. So, well, for those of you who didn't know, for everyone watching right now. Clinton, could you tell us a little bit about what the Disney Fine Art program is as a whole? Because I know it may not be on everyone's radar.
Well, it's basically, it's oil painters and a couple of acrylic painters and artists in general that make handmade oil paintings the traditional way, and then they get released by Disney at the galleries and the theme parks as Disney Fine Art. It's a very small division.
Okay, very small, but very important.
Yes, I think so.
That's good. So years ago, you attended something called Disney Boot Camp. Can you tell us a little bit about how how that experience shaped your technique and maybe your approach to painting?
Well, how did it shape my technique? I worked really hard to try to get into it. In fact, I probably was borderline psychotic. I remember when we found out. Oh yeah, no, the story of how I got into the thing is actually probably the best part of it. We knew that Disney was coming and they were going to do a boot camp, and they were going to pick, I think it was 35 people throughout from like 17 or 18 different schools throughout the entire country. And we had some warning that they were coming. And so we all spent like 8 months just drawing every waking second. Disney, at that time, Disney basically told us, if you're not drawing, in your sleep, you're not going to be good enough to get the job. And so we were drawing, 7 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock in the morning, getting 5 hours sleep. And I submitted my portfolio, and my school had sort of filtered for Disney who got to go to the interview. And, they picked 3 boys and 3 girls and 3 of this race and 3. They they made it very politically correct. And so I got left out. And so did a buddy of mine. We felt, however, that we were good enough and should have been included. So we went anyway. and we just showed up to the interview. We politely waited until it was over, and we said we felt that we got slighted, and we should have been included in this. Would you take a look at our portfolios? And the people from Disney basically said, well, you two have guts. Yeah, we'll take a look at your portfolios. And we got in, both of us.
Wow. Oh, there you are. I can't hear you, sir.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. There you are. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was one of my parents calling. So just goes to show, no matter how old you are, your parents will still wreck even the shortest of moments.
Mom, I'm on live streaming.
Yeah, and I told them not to call me tonight. I said, just give me, I'll call you when I'm done. No, of course not.
It's okay. It was a very honest and human moment. I appreciated that. Now, was the point of the boot camp to churn out new animators? Is that what the whole point was?
Yeah, I think that was the original point. But after it was over, they went on a hiring freeze. So I think one person I didn't get in. I know a lot of people didn't get in. There's a story as to I did the boot camp in 98, I think it was 99, when I was a junior in art school, and I got into Disney Fine Art in 2013 or 14.
Oh, okay.
So that's how long it took me to get in. It was a lot of persistence.
Well, I think persistence is very important. So I'm glad that you stuck with it all that time. They said we give you credit for coming out here and pushing yourself into the boot camp world, but they still didn't bring you into the program. Was that what you're saying?
No. I did the internship. We went out to Monterey Bay. We spent a month in Monterey Bay. Disney paid for everything. They gave us art books.
Wow.
I mean, it was amazing. And then we went back. It was junior year, so then we had to finish our senior year of art school.
Okay.
And then after that, they really weren't. They just didn't hire that many people from, if I remember correctly. Maybe it was just not me. But basically, I had wanted to be an animator or in consumer products, and so it was after the rejection of not getting into animation or consumer products or any of that. I mean, I was rejected from every single division of Disney, and sort of after like 6 months of a little bit of a bout with some depression, a friend of mine said, well, rather than do nothing, why don't you start painting? And so I said, all right, my life is a wreck. I didn't get into Disney. It's all over. Let me start painting. And so I started painting. And about 2 years after I started painting, I had my first gallery show. Okay. And suddenly I'm a fine artist and I'm in 5 galleries and I'm painting all these still lifes. And then in 2013, I said,
still lifes, go ahead and pull that up here. We'll do that. We'll make that part of the conversation. There you
go. Yeah, and so I was painting, basically fruit and vegetable still lifes. And in about 2013, I said, well, I've got a pretty solid fine art career going. Maybe I ought to go back and revisit the Disney thing and do some Disney-themed still lifes. And that's what they released.
Okay, so you took it upon yourself to do the Disney-themed still lifes. They didn't request it of you.
No, they didn't even. In fact, there's a funny story there, where I was even submitting to the wrong department.
Oh, where were you submitting?
I was just sending it to, trying to get Disney's attention, and I met a Disney artist named Stephen Fishwick, who's a really talented and great guy, and he put me in the right direction.
I mean, that's awesome. You got to have those people looking out for you a little bit, right?
There's a lot of luck involved in anything. Yeah, that's a banana.
That is a banana.
I still do things. I mean, I'm going to plug myself. So these are I did thanks to the beer flu here, the coronavirus. I opened up an Etsy shop so that people can get my paintings because we're not going to conventions right now, and nobody's walking into galleries. And so I have an Etsy shop under my name. It's just Clinton Hobart. And the banana here is available. And, you know,
there you go.
A decent amount of paintings available if you'd like to buy one. There's prints available of that one. That's a new one. That's just sort of an Alice in Wonderland themed piece where it's not really Alice in Wonderland, but it's got an Alice in Wonderland feeling to it.
Like the ambiance of it is, yeah, I totally feel you on that. It does have that that whimsy, you know.
Yeah, I mean, who stacks buttons like that? I mean, it's not a natural thing to do.
You're right, Clinton. No human being would stack buttons like that. So anyway, so you took it upon yourself to paint something Disney related. What was that first painting that you finally got submitted to the right place and then set you on your path?
It was actually 2 statues, ceramic statues of Mickey and Minnie from the 1930s that my grandmother had on her mantelpiece.
I have a picture of that, I think. Hold on. I think I have a picture of that. Gesundheit.
Uh-oh, I got the beer flu.
I mean, let's hope not.
No. Come on, let's be honest. If you're out anywhere and somebody sneezes, we're all terrified.
Yeah, that's kind of true.
We run from somebody sneezing nowadays.
I have to.
Just had too much pepper with dinner. That's all it is.
Yeah. Here we go. Here's the image in question, right?
No, those are actually Disney Big Fig statues, and so those I got years after I first signed on with Disney. I did this thing where I didn't know who was seeing my work, and so I'm gonna just be honest because that's my whole thing is just honesty. I love honesty, and so I Googled galleries that sold Disney art, and I walked into them to see if they had my stuff hanging. Which I know some people are kind of like, "Oh my God, you did that!" But yeah, I did that.
I mean, how could you not? I mean, if you're a gallery artist, I think you should know where you are.
Right. So there was a gallery in Florida. I was living in Florida, and I'm still living in Florida. And there was a gallery called Barker Animation Art Gallery, and he said had all this Disney stuff. And so I walked in and I said, "Do you have my stuff?" And he said, "Well, who are you?" And I introduced myself, and he said, "No, I don't have your stuff." And he looked it up on. He was at that time he was in his mid-80s. Mr. B, we called him, Mr. Barker. He passed away last year.
Oh.
He was like a grandfather to me. He was just one of my favorite people in the world. He made it to 95. So.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I miss him, but he made it to 95. Congratulations, right? And so he loved my work immediately and ordered a whole bunch of it. And then I was teaching drawing at the gallery, and he really took me under his wing and helped me out. And he was just a wonderful person. And he had these Big Fig statues for sale. That's the point of the story. And so he let me borrow them to make paintings from. They're from the 90s, like everything else that's great.
Yes, I agree. I have an affinity for things from the 90s as well. Well, I mean, I'm immediately taken by. I mean, when I saw your work, I felt this way, but I'm seeing it again right now in this conversation. I love how well you render things. There's something really charming about something that's rendered in 3D that was not created in 3D, if that makes any sense.
It makes sense because I've heard it so much, but one of the things that people always say about me and about my work is that they love that it feels 3D. It feels like they could pick it up and touch it like it's going to jump off the canvas.
Yes.
And that was never deliberate.
Oh, really?
I don't really know how I do that. I don't know why. It's like a byproduct. It's just I wish I could say it was genius, but I can't explain it.
I mean, you can say it. You don't have to mean that it is, but you can. You got some kind of stuff going on here.
Accident. It was an accident. I've always felt the same way about the Mona Lisa's smile, by the way. I think that everybody makes way too big. I think if you asked Da Vinci, what about that? He would have gone, that's how she looked. She was just sitting like that. What are you worried about?
You know, that's the thing about magic. When it finally strikes, it's a perfect combination of elements that you would never have known to mix in that particular recipe. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, you just have the right combination of look and style and subject matter and right place, right time, all those things. So okay, so we got you now as a fine artist, and I have to kind of bring this up because I also went to fine art school. Something that I noticed in fine art school was they did a fantastic job in preparing us to be fine artists. They did not, however, prepare us, in my opinion, for being fine artists that have careers.
Well, that's because most of the people teaching in art school didn't have a career. So how could they teach you how to have one?
That's fair.
I had, I went to SVA, the School of Visual Arts in New York City, and from what I heard, we had a tremendous amount of instructors at that school that were talented. In fact, my drawing teacher is now very high up at Disney Consumer Products. So the guy that taught me how to draw actually got the job at Disney. Wonderful artist. I'm gonna mention his name. Hopefully he doesn't kill me. His name is John Quinn, and he's got an Instagram page, and he's doing sculptures now. He's just amazing. He's still amazing. I still learn from him. I graduated 20 years ago, and I still learn something from my teachers, and that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, that is wonderful. So you found a way to make those two things work. Take the fine art aspect of it, but also to find a way to develop a sort of business savvy around it, right? Did that come naturally, or was that more of a trial and error kind of thing?
Oh, I still don't know what I'm doing business-wise.
Good to know.
Yeah, no clue. In fact, I let, anytime somebody else is willing to do the talking for me, I let them. One of my favorite quotes is, this was in a real traditional fine art. One of the head salespeople at one of the galleries that represented me, I was in there and they were having an opening, and I said, "Do you need me to go?" And she said, "Oh, honey, having you here talking has never helped me sell your work." Just thought. And again, it's because most people have said to me, "Too honest." It's the number one thing I hear, and so a small percentage of people love that about me, and everybody else is just like, "You way too honest."
I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. But I guess I could see how it gets you in trouble a little bit here and there. So let's talk a little bit about some of your process, because when I was looking at your work, another artist that came to mind. I don't know if you're familiar with Dave Mckeon.
Sounds familiar.
Dave Mckeon, he does work with Neil Gaiman. But the reason I'm bringing him
he's
up,
a comic book artist.
Yeah, he's a graphic novel. Yeah, the reason why I'm bringing him up is because he does kind of a mixed media thing where he will create little sculptures and take photos of them and do kind of combined painting with sculpture and all that stuff. You kind of are taking a similar approach, in the sense that you build still lifes for yourself, correct?
Yes.
So this painting right here is kind of a good example of that. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that and how you arrived at that conclusion to do that.
Well, I arrived at that conclusion because the way that all this started was that in about 2012 or 13, I was ripped off by an entire town in China.
Wow.
And a whole town ripped me off. And basically, I was part of a gallery show in Texas, and they had posted high resolution photos of my work on their website, unbeknownst to me and everyone else that got ripped off. And then a town in China famous for this had basically gone to this website and helped themselves to it like it was the prime rib at a Golden Corral. And they just purloined everything, and then we found it. Somebody had sent me a link to it. It was a Persimmons painting that I had made, And it was on eBay for like $39.95. And at that point, my work was selling for between, $250 and $500 for these little 6x8s. So when you're selling a painting for $500 and you see a copy of it on eBay for $39.95, it's upsetting.
Yeah.
To a very long story short, two things had happened. Number one, it was a painting of persimmons. It got me on the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley, who did an entire story on the fact that this town was ripping off American artists. But also, I decided that if I built my own set, it would be instantly recognizable that you ripped me off. And so if I paint a persimmon and you copy it, well, anybody can go to the store and buy a persimmon. But that staircase I built is a little less hard to find.
Sure. So, okay, so it became a way to sort of build in a watermark, so to speak.
Yeah. And also, I've also never been a huge fan of ripping other people off either. I like my work. Obviously, I can't say that my work doesn't look like anybody else's. Nobody's truly unique. But I don't think that when you look at my paintings, you instantly can recognize who my teachers are. I don't think you can instantly say, oh, there's a couple of very famous artists right now that have about 15 people just blatantly copying. One of them, a guy named Richard Schmidt. If I were him, I'd report my style stolen. It's just unbelievable, and it's just I want people to say, oh, that looks like, if you walk into a room and it's a group show, I want you to be able to spot my painting on the wall instantly just by glancing around. And part of that is easy to do by just building things, by building your own. I call them sets, by the way.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Yeah, that looks like a little set there in the photo. And I guess it's a good point that you're bringing it up because part of what makes being officially licensed by Disney to be a painter versus just being a fan and painting some art is that they are putting their stamp of approval on your work and selling it through them as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, that's a pretty big distinction. Does Disney ever try to go after and stop the counterfeiting kind of things?
I think they're more worried about clothing and toys and things that are being mass produced in terms of eBay sales, and artists, them selling one or two paintings at $49.95. I don't think anyone's ripped off the Disney fine art, but I don't know. But I do know, it's easy to just take Mickey Mouse and put him on a backpack and put it on a cell phone case. And I think they're more concerned with sort of, millions of listings as opposed to one or two.
That's fair. Yeah. And just for the sake of authenticity, I should point out that if you go to disneyfineart.com and click on the list of artists, they can find you there.
Yes.
And then you can also go to clintonhobart.com and find you that way as well.
Yes, that is true. Especially if you want an original. I believe the Disney Fine Art page is mostly for prints. I don't think they have any of my originals listed. It's just prints.
So okay.
If you want originals from,
you don't send them the original. You don't give the original to them then?
They have the originals. They just don't have them on the website.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why.
So if people want to,
we're not going to ask.
What's that?
We're not going to ask. We don't.
We're not going to know. It's buried underneath some stack of prints of Snow White or something. So if people want to get something, let's say you want to get, because I know you were influenced very heavily by Beauty and the Beast, for example. Let's say someone wanted to get an original drawing of their favorite character, Beauty and the Beast. They would go through to you at your website.
Yeah, well, they can. Sketches are something that we can do, and I always say, I don't say. You can get any character you want, and it doesn't have to be Disney character. It can be, if you want a character sketch, like we do at conventions where we just sit there and do sketches. And I know a lot of guys are expensive. I don't think I make mine that expensive. It's a Blue Line sketch. It's one character is 40. It's 2 for 60. And if you want more than 2 characters, just send me a message. I mean, I can be reached. It's my name, Clinton Hobart, and you can send me a message through Facebook. You could send me a message through Instagram.
Okay.
And in fact, my email address is my name, Clinton Hobart at Hotmail or Clinton Hobart at Gmail. And I did that just because, as an artist, you want to be found. Just don't tell the IRS.
Right. And there we are seeing a little bit more of your process there. There's not a blue line drawing, but that is a drawing nonetheless. So
yeah, normally I draw in paint. Actually, I draw with burnt umber, and white. This one, because that staircase was so complicated, I did a little bit of drawing in pencil first, because that staircase was borderline masochism. It was insanely difficult to get accurate in there.
It's important to point out that you are still painting traditional oils, and you're not doing this in any Adobe software.
No, I mean, I wish in a lot of respects I had taken the time to learn some of the computer stuff. I'd make more money, but it's all made by hand. It's all freehand drawn. So no, it's not, I've got friends that are doing digital art, and one of the things that drives me nuts is you can tell that the bottom layer of their painting was the photo of the actor, and it's just, I don't use any tracing devices. It's not projected. It's not digitally enhanced. That's just, I took the time to learn how to draw, and so I use the skill. That's how I like to do it.
There you go. And you were also pretty influenced by Little Mermaid at one point, right?
Yeah. It was actually one specific scene that I said, ironically, I want to go into animation. It was the scene where she comes up out of the water and she pushes her hands down on the rock, and her head and the wind picks up her hair and it sticks to her face. And I just looked at that and I went, somebody drew that, and that somebody happened to be Glenn Keane, who maybe one of the best animators ever lived. And that scene just did it for me. I couldn't believe someone drew hair sticking to a face, and so convincingly. Subsequently, I also, when I watch some of the Bugs Bunny cartoons, and Bugs Bunny does this with his hand, and you can see the skin come up on the skull.
Oh yeah. There's some great little moments of that with the Figaro, where he's massaging Elmer Fudd's head, and you got all that like skin kind of pushing around.
And you feel the skull underneath. Somebody drew that, These guys were just amazingly talented guys.
Yeah. So are we going to be expecting to see some Ariel and Scuttle and stuff like that from you?
I haven't done character, if you notice. Aside from the sketches at shows, all my stuff is basically still life, so it's interpretive. So if you look at that painting, it's a teapot, it's a staircase. It sort of says Alice in Wonderland, but it doesn't. And I don't like being quite so literal. I don't want to do a painting of Ariel. I don't want to do a painting of Flounder. I'd rather do something that you look at it and you're like, that feels like The Little Mermaid. Because there's so many guys out there that are already doing that. Like, I'm not going to do a better Ariel painting than 3 or 4 of the Disney artists are already doing. Like, if you want a painting of Ariel, there's a ton of guys doing great paintings.
But nobody's doing it. We do have Mrs. Potts right over here, though, and Chip, right?
That's a real tea set.
Okay. So that's the difference. Is she is an inanimate object come to life, and therefore it kind of bridges that a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's a real tea set that I purchased. So the tea set is real, and then the clock and the candlestick and the rose. But those are all, like the other set of Alice in Wonderland, those objects were all in front of me.
Ah, okay, great. And by the way, I've lost visual on you.
Oh, I don't know why.
It's okay. I can still hear you though.
Huh.
I just pulled up a Marvel Comics cover for Star Wars where we got a little Harrison Ford-ish. Well, I mean pre-Harrison Ford, I guess. The newer actor, I'm blanking on his name right now, who played Han Solo, but this is a cover someone could go out and find on the comics racks, correct?
No, that was actually a commission.
Oh.
So I disappeared. I don't know why.
You did disappear. You could go ahead and pop out and pop back in. I'll wait for you.
Okay.
I love technology. Here, we'll go ahead and get this. We'll go ahead and get this sort of centered here. Wait for him to come back in. Thanks everyone for your patience. Everyone's like, well, now we've got a painting and we've got. There we go. Let's see if we can get you back in. There you are. Welcome back, Clinton.
All right. I don't know what happened there, but
I'm not sure.
Okay, so yeah, that is a comic cover. It's a portrait of the actor who played Han Solo in the movie. I can't remember his name either.
Yeah, I'm blanking on that too.
So there's a Comic-Con. I don't know if you've been to it, called Ace.
I've not been to Ace, no.
Ace is owned by Stephen and Gareb Shamus, the Shamus brothers, and they are just two of my favorite human beings on this entire planet. Stephen has commissioned me every time he has a guest to do a portrait of the guest on a comic book cover, and then he has the actor sign it. I've done Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, Mark Ruffalo, everybody who's been in an Ace show, and a few who haven't. And Stephen has over 60 original portraits of mine, the largest collection of anyone to own my work.
Holy cow. That is impressive.
Thank you. And that's just one of my favorites. Every once in a while you do a painting and you look at it and you're like, I can't believe I painted this and I'm not even finishing it. It's just done. And so if you look at the cover, it's actually it's not even finished. I just went, it's not getting any better than this. I'm leaving it alone.
That's I've had that personal realization a number of times, and I've spoken with other artists that you never really finish anything. You just let it go.
Abandon it. Yeah.
Abandon it. Yes, that's a good way to put it. So I mean, are you looking to do more Star Wars related things, or are there things on your horizon that you can tell us about that are sort of percolating right now?
Yeah, there's always something percolating. I mean, I don't want to say I'm on hold. I've got some things working, but I'm sort of waiting until the fall to see where the state of the world goes right now.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily, I try not to take too many sides politically. And by political, I don't mean, elections and candidates. I mean, just saying anything that someone might yell at me over. But I just feel there's a lot going on right now. And I want to wait until some things settle down before I make any decisions.
Okay. Well, until then, we've got this wonderful sculpture that we can look at from Tangled. Now, did this become a painting as well?
Yes. In fact, the sculpture became more popular than the painting. And I used to bring that around with me to Comic-Cons. I used to set the thing up right at shows.
I mean, it's a great sculpture. So you've been physically making sculptures before you were painting, correct?
Yeah, I mean, is that a sculpture? Does that qualify as a sculpture? I mean, it's real stonework.
Yeah.
It's cardboard. It's I mean, that thing has got a little of every. I had to learn how to stone a wall up because when you use real stone and mortar, you can't go all the way up in one sitting. It'll slide down. So you have to go up 3 or 4 layers and then let it dry. And then it took a week just to get the stone all the way up.
I mean, why wouldn't it count as a real sculpture?
Because to me, sculpture is you get a big piece of clay or some plaster and a hammer and a chisel, and you do this for
I don't know.
6 years.
That's sort of a one-sided approach. You know, there's other ways to make sculptures. I think there's found object art as well. That's another way you can do it.
That's true. A funny story about this sculpture was I built it in my driveway. And anytime any one of my neighbors asked me what I was building, I gave them all a different answer. That way, in case they talked to each other, they'd be very confused. I told one person it was a bird feeder. I told somebody else it was a nightlight. So everyone who asked me what I was building, I just gave a different answer too. Probably shouldn't.
That's a pretty good little prank. I think that's. So now, this is something that is found in a gallery, or no?
No, I kept it. I actually am going to turn it into a nightlight, making it the world's most expensive nightlight.
How big is it?
It's 4.5 feet tall.
Oh wow! Okay, awesome. Do you ever get together with the other Disney fine art painters, and like, is there some sort of we're going to have a collaborative meeting or some sort of I don't know? Is there like a big Zoom conference where you all get together and share your thoughts?
No. There may be, but I haven't gone to it. I mean, I'll hang out with anyone in real. I haven't done the Zoom thing. I've been invited to a couple, but I don't know. Drinking with my friends while we're all on TV doesn't really, I can't. I'm a dinosaur, man. I'm an old guy in a young body, and not that young anymore. But yeah, I don't want to. When we can go to bars, I'll go to bars. I'll hang out. I miss my friends. I want to see them, but I just can't do the whole drinking on TV thing. It's not. So no, I'll wait till I can get together with them.
Oh, well, that's fair. Something that I find fascinating about illustration in all forms is when it's a still image, that gives the audience the opportunity to scrutinize it like forever. And as opposed to like the numerous frames in an animated film, where if you take one frame out of context, sometimes you get a little bit less than a photographic picture, if you know what I mean. Like,
could you say that?
Yeah. So in other words, in animation, there's a lot of different images, and sometimes those images look a little bit strange if you just take them out of context. But when you're making a painting, it's this idealized version of that picture that is going to stare at the person forever. So I mean, do you ever like think about that or take that into consideration?
Yeah. Especially when you're trying to tell a story, it's easier to tell a story with animation. And yeah, I understand what you mean. Like if you freeze frame it, Roger Rabbit, especially if you freeze frame it and go frame by frame, some of the facial expressions are downright hilarious.
Right.
In order to get it to feel like those eyes are bulging or things like that.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's limiting in that, for the animation standpoint, you can take one of those drawings and call it art, but no one's going to hand oil paint an entire animated film, at least not yet. I mean, I guess you could do it if you had, 50, 60 years to kill.
Sure.
But, and then the other thing is the downside to what I'm doing is, yes, I can make the large oil painting, but you've got to be very, very specific to tell a story you basically have one frame. So I'm trying to tell a story in one frame. And that's not an easy thing to do.
So why oils and not acrylic?
Acrylic just dries too fast. And I always thought there's a couple of people right now that are breaking this, but for the most part, acrylic looks like plastic to me. It has that shininess to it. It looks, and I said, there's a couple of guys that are painting in acrylics, and you can't tell. It looks like an oil painting, but that's like 3 people that are that good, and everybody else, it just looks like you're painting with plastic cups. And oil blends better. You can be more subtle with oil paint than you can with acrylic for the most part. Again, there's a company somebody has called open acrylics, and they've got blending mediums. They're getting there. The blending is going to be better, but 20 years ago when I started painting, you had 3 seconds on the acrylic dry.
Right.
So and then the other thing is, again, up until recently, 20 years ago, oil paintings sold for more money. Now that the average art buyer knows very little about art, the acrylic paintings and house paintings and the guy who just did the Kimson's thing for $160 million or whatever, he got paid for that. And I mean, you don't even have to paint anymore. Just tape a banana to the wall. Why learn any skill at all? Just tape fruit to the wall and you'll make millions.
That's
yeah. It's gonna smell good after a few weeks, but
right.
That's
but is it art? So when
I actually did a painting of that when it happened. I did a painting of the and then 3 of the people who follow me on Instagram stole the idea. So
of course,
yeah.
Well, let's just hope if you do anything with Little Mermaid, you don't feel like making a still life of dead fish. That could be problematic.
That's not a bad idea.
I don't know. It might be. Smell-wise, it's not a good idea.
You're frozen. I actually did a painting once of crawfish. Somebody wanted a crawfish boil, and I'm like, I was living in Florida, and I'm like, leaving dead crawfish on a table for a week doesn't really seem like a good idea. No. So I just put them in the freezer and I froze them. And then when they started to thaw, I put them back in the freezer. And so you can paint fish if you can paint frozen fish.
You can. And then it's a moment frozen in time, frozen twice.
Oh, that's awful. Okay.
So I just want to see if anybody in the audience had any questions. So if you guys have any questions for Clinton, go ahead and gather those questions up right now. Start putting them in the comments. And while I'm waiting for those to come in, let's talk a little bit about how do you get yourself in the mood when you're painting something? How
do I get myself? I've never had to.
Like, I mean, you're gonna paint Alice in Wonderland. How do you kind of like? Do you have to put yourself? You watch the movie first and then sit down and paint it, or?
Yes, absolutely. If I know when I did the Beauty and the Beast, I watched the film. I even listened to some of the soundtracks, some of the music. You can't. My paintings take me like a month, so you can't listen to that. You obviously cannot listen to the Beauty and the Beast music constantly.
Right.
But there's enough, where I'll put it on. Music is very important to my painting in general.
Okay.
I have a bizarre thing. I'd love to tell this real quick because I want to meet her one of these days. Whenever I get into a jam in a painting, and I found this out maybe 15, 16 years ago, I was having a problem. I did a still life of a mask, and there was a golden goblet in it. And months I spent on this thing, and I could not get it right. And a Sarah McLachlan song came on the radio station I was listening to, and all of a sudden I started painting real well, and I couldn't figure it out. And then the song ended, and so at that time, somebody that I knew had one with them, and so we put the CD in, and I painted this whole goblet. And so for whatever reason, I wouldn't stop. I went out and I got every single one of her CDs, and I listened to nothing but Sarah McLachlan the entire time I painted this painting. And it went, and to this day, if I'm listening to something and I get myself into a jam, I put on a Sarah McLachlan CD, and it just, the thing just paints itself. And it's one of those things that I can't explain. It makes no sense. Most people look at me and they're like, you don't really look like a Sarah McLachlan fan. And so it must be the goatee, I guess. But
no, it's the mouse ears. It's the mouse ears behind you. That's what it is. There you go.
My spotlights.
That's interesting. I kind of hope you can reach out to her and tell her that sometime.
I mean, if I was a musician, I'd love to find that out. Hey, so there's an artist there that can't paint unless he's listening to your music.
If anybody watching this video, Sarah McLachlan, and can pass along a message. And you mentioned it was when you were painting a mask, so I kind of want to show. I want to show the Harley Quinn mask, I should say, not Harley Quinn. Let me just pull this up
It's
here.
the carnival mask. I don't know if I sent you the image or not. It's an opera glove is in there, and some. No, it's not. That's a newer one. That one.
That's
it's
beautiful.
the same series where I have masks. Thank you.
Yeah, let's zoom in. Let's get some. There you go. Look at that. Okay, so people watching this video, they want to get some official Clinton Hobart paintings, but maybe they can't afford one of the big ones. What do you recommend they do?
Well, if you want an original, you first of all contact me directly. You'd be amazed at how much prices can come down when nobody else is listening. I know I shouldn't say that, but always contact me, the artist directly if you can. I mean, if I was represented by a huge gallery that was making me millions, I wouldn't say something like that. But I'm not, so I can say something like that.
Yeah.
And so you can give me a message, and this is what I want. This is what I'm looking to spend. I actually have a rule, and that is I want people to own my work, and I try not to be pretentious about my prices because I want to be accessible. And so you tell me what size you want and what you're willing to spend, and I'll make you the best painting I can. And usually you'll get, at least you'll pay half, if not less, of what that thing usually costs. Because I want people to own my work. I want to be able to say.
Do you reserve the right to reproduce that image, or it's a one-off and that's it?
No, I mean I can make prints of anything I paint. Most people don't mind if you make prints. If it's a commission, if somebody says to me, "Hey, I want you to paint this, 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 and this," and then if I decide that I'd like to make prints, I will ask them first, even though I don't have to. As a courtesy, I will say, "Hey, do you mind if I make prints of this? It's a really good piece." And no one's ever said no. In fact, most of those just say, "Can I have one?" And I'll say, "Well, sure."
Right on. All right. Well, let's see if we got some questions going on in the peanut gallery. Let's see. Well, Mary is watching, and she actually was asking about if you planned on making those Disney ears behind you.
If I was planning on what?
The lights behind you. If that was an intentional setup to make it look like.
No, we noticed it earlier, and I just didn't move them. It was not intentional. You were there when in fact, you noticed it. I wouldn't have even put two and two together.
Yeah.
I just thought it was funny when you noticed it. I just thought I will leave it alone and not move them.
The other here, I'll go ahead and pull this picture up too. Let's see. We've got someone saying, "Great job, Clinton Hobart. Best regards from Mexico City." This is Francisek.
You're heavily breaking up, so I just.
Yeah, I'm not sure why.
I heard Mexico City, so I'm guessing we have someone viewing it in Mexico City, which is pretty cool. I mean, wow,
yeah,
that's far.
Yeah, and then Rebecca is asking, any more mask paintings?
Any more mask paintings? I haven't. I think I might know who that is asking that. It's a matter of time, and time is something I may or may not have coming up. I'd love to paint more masks. The problem is that every time I paint a mask, paintings take me a very long time to paint, and nobody's ever bought one. Probably because the prices are a little on the high side. But unless somebody wants to spend a decent amount of money to give me the month to paint a mask painting, I just simply can't take a month to make a painting that nobody's going to buy because they can't afford it or they don't know it exists.
It was Rebecca Whitness. That helps you.
Yeah, I figured that. She owns several of my paintings. She's just awesome.
Is this garlic?
What?
Is that garlic?
That was my COVID painting, and so that was I didn't want to paint masks or toilet paper because that's so cliche. You know, everybody's doing that, and not that I'm against it. I don't like doing something everybody else is doing. And so we went to the grocery store, and this was in March when this thing first happened, and everybody was terrified to leave the house. And you know, we went to the grocery store, and it was like it was like literally grocery shopping was like an espionage scene in a bad spy movie, you know, where you get the mask on and you grab the garlic real quick and let's get that out of here. And so we grabbed we made a break. We got the bananas, and we forgot to get garlic, and we got everything else. And so we were like rationing the garlic we had, 1 clove per meal, which actually reminded me of the Jack and the Beanstalk, where he's cutting the pea in half, or was the Fury? Yeah. I can't remember. There's a Donald Duck scene where he's cutting a pea in half or slicing. And so I thought, wow, what a great thing to paint for the coronavirus would be just 1 single clove of garlic on an empty canvas, and that's it. That's the whole painting.
You know, it's a creative. It's creative. It's also ambitious because garlic. I can imagine it's a very obvious thing to recognize when you paint it.
It's harder than you think, especially when you have an empty painting. When you have an empty painting like this, if you're going to paint one thing, you better get it right. Because if it doesn't look like garlic, people are going to be like, well, I don't know what that is.
So, I mean, what can you tell everybody watching, maybe aspiring painters, what can you tell them about painting the color white, but not painting just white?
Well, it's practice. And yes, I mean, you're right. It's blues and it's purples and it's grays and it's yellows. But, before, I would say to paint white before you start. If you're going to paint garlic or you're going to paint a ceramic coffee mug, you're better off starting with raw umber and white and getting those values right. Because if you're going to try painting white with blue and pink and green, your value control better be spot on. And so I would always say, do it in raw umber and white, and then go in and add some of those colors. And I still do that to this day.
Oh, wow. Okay. How do you approach shadows? Are you creating, was that a real shadow you created in real life?
Yeah. I put a little piece of garlic up on the model stand, and, the shadow did that. I don't make up shadows because I learned from looking at trees on rocks that if you set up anything, whether it's garlic or and you set it up without a light on it and make up what the shadow would look like if a spotlight was on it, and then you turn the light on, most of the time you're going to be wrong. What we perceive or what we think a shadow is going to look like actually isn't what it looks like at all. I'm sure that if I had made that shadow up on that garlic, it would have been flatter and then more of an L shape than it actually was. Shadows do strange things.
For sure. And especially when you have a character like this where you probably didn't have a still life to work from, then you have to get more inventive, right?
No, that's a real person. That's a cosplayer I met at a Comic-Con in Chicago.
Oh.
I think it was Chicago, actually. She was a makeup artist, and she walked by my table, and I just thought it was the best darn costume and makeup job I've ever seen. And I said, can I take a picture of you and make a painting? And she said yes. And so it's from a photo because, you can't really do a portrait at a Comic-Con. It's kind of tricky. It's a little loud.
That's very true. You have a favorite character to draw, like that you don't need a lot of reference, you can just sort of make it happen?
No. In fact, I did a Mickey challenge recently that John Quinn had asked me to do, and I spent like a week, and I just don't draw. The guys that can just whip out a drawing of Mickey Mouse or whip out a drawing of this character, usually they're guys who spend a lot of time drawing those characters, and I don't. I think I've drawn Mickey Mouse maybe 5-10 times in my entire life. and it's usually at a show when somebody says, "Hey, can you do a quick sketch of Mickey?" And you're like, "Sure," and you Google Mickey and you look at your phone and you're like, "All right, there we go, that's Mickey." But like to actually draw Mickey in a position you haven't seen before is, in my opinion, extremely difficult.
Well, yeah, because you're dealing with something that's fictional, right? I said because you're dealing with something. You're dealing with something that's fictional.
Well, yeah, I mean, but most people that draw Mickey Mouse, even if you look in a lot of the paintings that are going on, they're copying poses that have already been drawn. What I'm saying is, if you're looking at Mickey Mouse and you want to do the standard high, he's looking in high, but if you want to have Mickey Mouse doing yoga poses, for example, or where you can't cheat, you can't look at the reference of them. That's much harder than just copying a drawing of Mickey. It's to anyone who hasn't tried, give it a shot. Drawing these characters without reference and putting them in different positions, it's very difficult. And that's why we look at guys like Glenn Keane and some of these animators with such awe, because they were so talented.
Sure.
You can do that.
But you are quite adept at painting spicy nacho Doritos.
Well, I probably painted more Doritos than I have Mickey Mouse. I'm sad to say.
Can you? But before you go tonight, can you tell us about why Doritos?
Why the Doritos?
Yeah.
It's funny. Do you know this story? Because this is something that I tell.
I don't think you told me. I don't think you told me the story.
All right, so I'll tell the story real quick. So the Doritos was at one point. I was having dinner. My brother is a 16th century French literary scholar with a double doctorate from Harvard and the Sorbonne. And he's younger than me. You'd think in my family I'd be the star, but no, I got to have a genius for a brother. So my genius for a brother and I were sitting down having drinks one night. And my brother, with all of his education and his degrees, is still just a kid from Jersey. So keep that in mind. So we're having drinks one night, and he looks at me, he goes, "I don't know what you're painting apples and eggshells for. If Rembrandt were alive today, he'd be painting Cheetos and Doritos, because that's what this country eats." And so as soon as he said it, we just kind of looked at each other and went, let's see if anybody's done that. So we Googled it. We couldn't find, at that time, which was like, solid 5-6 years ago, we couldn't find anybody else. Now, if you look, everybody's doing it. But when I first did it, I couldn't find anybody else who had painted Doritos before. And so we thought, wouldn't it be funny to take a handful of Doritos and put them on a table like it's grapes, like it's a serious still life. And it was supposed to be a joke. We thought it was funny. I brought it to shows thinking, ha ha ha, bright orange painting of Doritos. People kept coming up to me going, "Hey, do you have prints of that? Do you have prints of that?" Well, finally, after the third show, I was like, maybe I ought to make prints of it. So I make prints of it, and I'm at my table one day, and I look up, and my Michael Rooker from Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, I had known him for a while, and we were joking around, and we had said something the night before, and he came up to my table to say something to me, and mid-sentence, he's like, "Did you paint Doritos?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Why?" And so I tell him the story. And he just said, "I love it. I have to have it. How much is it?" And he buys the painting. And apparently it's in his bathroom or it's in his daughter's bathroom. But my painting of Doritos is in the private collection of Yondu from Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's a pretty amazing story and very boastworthy. With that, we are out of time. Clint, I want to thank you for being here and sharing your work, your unique story of how animation and you have had this interwoven but a little bit different path, and hopefully everyone will go out and visit you at hobart.com.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And just to touch on what you just said, I think the important thing is to just tell people, don't give up. I didn't get into Disney consumer products. I didn't become an animator, but I didn't give up, and things are pretty good.
I would agree. Have a great night.
Thanks. You too.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here for another episode of Stay Tuned Live. I'd like to also take a moment to thank my Stay Tuned patrons. Your support continually encourages me each and every month and helps me make it possible to keep doing what I do as an independent creator. If you enjoy these weekly free shows and you'd like to support them, go ahead and visit patreon.com/Phil Machi to learn more about the various reward tiers, and you can sign up today. While you're at it, go ahead and check out my original comic books at philmachi.com, and be sure to say hi to me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook under my name or under the name Retail Sunshine. Once again, please be sure to join the amazing Stay Tuned community page right here on Facebook for free daily news from the world of all things animated. Get involved now at facebook.com/groups/Stay Tuners. I've been Phil Machi. You have been a wonderful audience. And until next week, keep those eyeballs peeled, those ears open, and be sure to stay tuned.